This is PTN TV. You are watching PTN TV, changing your life. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. This is PTN TV with me, Professor Ezekiel Orero, and today, guess what? We're going to discuss about something that's very sensitive, something that you have heard it, but from a different angle. Remember, we have the numbers on the screen. Keep sending your SMS and keep watching what we're doing. Now, we want to talk about Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africans, maybe from our start. This is where people talk about Africa. They talk about their country, but at the same time, we have what we call the westernization, civilization. We should talk about their politics. Look at the resources we have in Africa. Why Africa is not growing? Africa as a continent. Why can't we have a president for Africa like the United States of America? Why don't we have the United States of Africa? That is what we're going to look at this moment. And I have a guy who has been journeying and talking about in his channel, Lit Up Media. He has been discussing about Pan-Africanism. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on board.
I'm happy to see you.
Happy to see you too.
Now, when somebody hears about Pan-Africanism, what comes in his or her mind? What is this person, or what do you mean? Or if I hear people talking about Pan-Africanism, what does it mean, please?
Great. Now, to be precise, straightforward to the point, Pan-Africanism means that you talk about, not only talking about, but you uphold the African values. Because Africa has always been looked down upon.
Okay.
We are talking about all the inequalities and the adversaries that Africans and the mistreatment that Africans did go through, especially during the colonial times or the colonial era. All these particular adversaries, the indignities that have been, done on the Africans, they're still, happening in the time present of speaking. So, to be a Pan-African, meaning that you are standing up for your rights to be identified, to be recognized in international platforms, not just to be considered as a slave as it used to be before.
On that point, so you mean that as we speak now, the Africans are not recognized wherever they are, maybe, for example, in the Western, the European countries, in the eastern part. So do you mean that they are not recognized? That's what you mean?
Not so, but of course, this is a bigger picture I need you to see. And as much as they're recognized, yes, they're recognized, but how are they recognized? They are recognized as inferior. They are recognized as literally subhuman to some countries. Even in the US, where the mistreatments are not limited to even genocide. Remember George Floyd? Even after, raising up his hands, trying to see, do everything that the police demanded, he ends up being, killed by these particular, people who think that their skin complexions give them, elevates them as to be superhuman than the Africans. And not only that, Africans in Africa and also their developmental agendas and their policies, they've always been seen as, like inferior in such a way that they cannot measure up to the standards of the European. Usually because of either by the skin complexions. If you're light-skinned, you're seen as more smart. If you're dark, African, black, you're seen as not measuring up, or maybe you're a retard. You're retarded. Like your ideas, your policies cannot measure up to the standards of the others.
Now, saying that the way you see the light-skinned people, they think they are smart.
Definitely is.
And that is also a debate that has been like, even if you look at the pictures of Jesus, they are giving it as a white man.
Definitely.
But then we have some other leaders who said that no, Jesus was a black man because he came to Egypt. There is that history. Yes. But not about that. Look at Africa.
Yeah.
People ask, even the Africans themselves, they can say that Africa is not a good continent to live in, one, because of the political issues.
Yes.
Africans, they are not civilized. There's no civilization in Africa. There is poor technology. there is a climate change each and every time that is changing in Africa, so it cannot favor the Africans to do that.
Yes.
Number two, there is poverty in Africa. So when you talk about Pan-Africanism, do you mean these things are all catered for?
Wow, good question. Good question right there. But before I answer your question, let me just bring you on board. One of the most highly esteemed convictions of the American Constitution is that there is one truth that holds to be truth above all, that all mankind were created equal, and something that is ascribed in the Constitution of US. But equal, but this, it does not cut across when you look at practically the implementation of that particular highly esteemed conviction in the Constitution of the US. That verily, of all things that stands to be true is that mankind has been created and equal, humanity that is. But that's not true. Now, answer your question. The political instability and the inferiority, the stagnation or the state of stagnation in developmental aspects in Africa is as a result of policies, adopted policies, poor policies, and manipulation by the Western authorities. And now, in the name of democracy, it's not really democracy at all. You see, there are other players. You see, these particular leaders that we have in Africa, presidents, shall I say here, they are puppets. There are some countries that are still advocating something that we call neo-colonialism. It is still an orchestrated kind of a move. So you thought that you were given all the freedom that you can now govern and rule yourself. No. It is like you're given a kingdom or you're given a crown without powers. You're just holding a scepter, just happen, but without any effect with that one. Now, saying this one means, why is it that there are still fundamental issues that Africa is still grappling with? Food insecurity should be a thing of the past. But in fact, in Africa, that should have been a thing of the past much long time ago than even the US. But because the country, just a minute, because the continent is blessed with arable land. But why are we still, even up to this particular 21st century, wrangling in that? Number two, health and health services, access to health and health services. It is very hard, rare in Africa, something that should be in the theme of the past. Facilities, infrastructure developments, even going to space, because it's believed that the wealth that Africa is endowed with, just in Africa, is enough to make Africa stand to be the superpower of the globe. But yet, Africa is the one that is languishing in that. Why? Why do we have all these particular crises that are happening in South Sudan? Why do we have insecurity issues in West Africa? Why do we have almost 3 to 4, 5 decades down the line insecurity in the DRC, Congo currently speaking? Why is it that we have got border? Why do we have like an imaginary border between a country and another? Something that was laid by those particular, colonialists. An imaginary border. Why do we have visa tariffs? That for you to cross from one country to another, you have to go through due processes when you know that you're going to meet a fellow person on the other end. It has always been divide and rule kind of a thing. And something that needs to come to an end. Now, if Africans are not enlightened, those Africans already at home and Africans in the diaspora, they're not going to do, especially the Africans in the diaspora, they need to be at the forefront to see all these things. And that is the reason why Western and the European countries, they will never want to see any country that is, quote unquote, seemingly trying to take a step forward to safeguard or to salvage itself from the status quo of stagnation, of developmental stagnation.
Let me cut it short here. When you talk about that, you have given a very good explanation. But look at this point here. Africa itself.
Yes.
Do we have the African language? Because when you talk about Pan-Africanism, that all these the 54 countries in Africa, they have to unite and they have to use one language. Now, if you look at this point, one, we have English is in Africa.
Yes.
French is in Africa. Spain is in Africa. Arabic is in Africa, just not far away. Look at Sudan. These are the people who speak Arabic. In fact, that's their mother tongue. That's what they do. Look at Kenya, they speak English. With look at Congo, you talked about. There is a French there. People are using the French. Look at Tanzania, Swahili, and some Germany. Now, do you think there is achievement? Because one, we don't speak the same language here. We have different. Somebody from Sudan, you say hi, you look at you like, what are you saying? Are you abusing me? Because they don't speak English. So, how do you think this barrier is going to be tackled? Because when you talk about, you have mentioned about Congo, which has the largest forest.
Yes.
In fact, in Africa, even in the world, it's ranked the best Africa. It has the largest forest.
Good.
And it has the fertile land. So, how are we going to achieve this?
Good. This is an answer to your question. It's a very good question. The European countries, they are equally divided in terms of ethnos and in dialects, just as you just said. We have the Spaniards, we have the Finnish, we have the Creoles, we have all those particular sub-domains or subgroups that speak different, languages. But do you know that there's one thing that unifies those particular people? If you have a European passport, you can move from Finnish or Finland all the way, let's say, for example, to Spain. And or you can make all those particular crisscrossing movements around the United Kingdom. But you are identified. You don't have to speak a language that is on the other end. But because here in Africa, they've made it significant and they've emphasized that, hey, the Francophones, they speak some French in the West Africa, and we have now English here in
the East Africa,
and we have the Arabic in the other side.
In the northern part of Africa.
That is not a thing. In fact, you should know, you mentioned that, because these people, they just like they do. If there's one thing that was going to unify these particular people, we wouldn't be identifying ourselves, or the Africans, they would be identifying themselves as, you know what, we are the Arabicans, we speak Arabic, so there's no need, we cannot do business with maybe the Southern Africa, or the Central Africa, or the Eastern Africa, or the West Africa. But you see, look at this. You ask somebody from the UK or from the Western region, they'll ask you, where are you going? They'll tell you that I'm going to Africa. They will not tell you that I'm going to a specific country like Kenya. In fact, they don't. Some of them, they don't. Africa. I'm going to Africa. They see it as a one. One. I'm telling you. Try to do some research. You'll ask any white out there. Will tell you. I'm going to Africa. Which country do you know in Africa? Which country? I'm just going to Africa. Africa itself, just like a country. Now, that particular issue, that particular problem has always been perpetuated. It's just a mentality game. It's a brainwashing kind of repeatedly being told that, you know what, in Central Africa, if you cannot go there, if you're not a Francophone. And all that one, and it has been used as a tool to keep on separating ourselves, to keep on separating Africans from each other. And something that needs to be realized high now. In fact, let this one go to the audience out there now. Because this is really painful. It takes something from me, because I feel like it is high time that Africans, and especially those in the diaspora, that if we are still thinking about, this is not good. If we are still thinking about food at this century, when are you going to have part of your brain thinking about going to space?
But look at this. Let me cut it short. As we speak now, we have the food relief coming to Africa.
Something wrong. That's wrong.
We look at even you find the country cannot sustain its people or have people there. They have to source food from outside. They have to import sugar. They have to import everything. Look at that point. Then when you talk about that, the African is good. You mentioned that if somebody is from UK or is coming to Africa, will say, I'm going to Africa. Now, do you mean that are we Africans dividing our own? Because for me, I want to go to Uganda, I want to go to Morocco, I'll say I'm going to this particular country. So do you want to say that we ourselves, we are dividing our Africa? And if we are doing so, if you look at the leadership we have, even the countries, they have regions. We have the South African region, we have the East African community, we have the West African community, we also have the Central African community and the North part of Africa. They call it the Sahara. So these people, they are not even united. So how do you think will unite all these 54 countries?
First of all, by identifying those particular structures that are trying to separate, disunite all these particular, to disunite all these particular people, there are external forces here at play. In the North Sahara that you've just mentioned right now, we've got many mercenaries, countries, people who have been set there to, in the name of keep peace. But in real sense, they're not trying to do that one. They're supplying arms, they're training mercenaries, they are spreading, hatred among the member states there. So what is happening, like especially now currently we have the other particular coups that are happening in the Western Sahel region. We have the French not the missionaries, but we have the French army in the West who have stationed their barracks there in the name that they are training, the African soldiers and other things in the name of that one. But in real sense, that place has never experienced or enjoyed peace at all. What does that tell you? Where do we even get these particular weapons or the weaponry to kill each other? Where is Southern Sudan, the arm, getting those particular arms to try to overtake the government? Is because of this, illegal movement of this. And I hail the movement that the Western Africa is trying to do. Because right now, we've got young leaders, people who are opened up with their eyes and they're like, no. First of all, first things first, withdraw all your troops from our government. From our country. Like what is currently happening in Burkina Faso.
Yeah.
Yes. The French, they have to withdraw their troops from French, first of all, and then clear the house. Then let's see what's going to happen next. And now, there are also the Russian machineries, of course. We have the Wagner group. But those ones, that is now, when we withdraw this, what is going to happen? Who supplies the weapons? In the DRC Congo, the same thing. So you're asking a good thing. Why is there no peace at all in some regions in Africa? This is a result of influences from outside. In Somalia, not Somalia here. That place has never experienced peace. And you can't tell me that there are Somalians who are fighting against Somalians, but maybe using knives or using some, and they don't manufacture guns there.
So what you mean is the westernization or the Western influence that is affecting the African countries?
In fact, it's affecting greatly. And
do you think if these people could have that idea, then why are they sponsoring education? Because if you look at most of the people in Africa, they have actually benefited from the Western education, and also they have even found scholarship for these people. They go outside there to their countries to study. So if they have the interest, do you think that these people could come and sponsor?
Very well, very good question. I will answer you that one, and before I forget, that is a choreographed move. There is no best interest at heart for these particular people. Have you ever heard of talent visas? Oh, we are giving visas. We are taking for talent. When they realize there is an IT guru from there, they say, oh, that's a talent, support that particular talent. They take to go and develop your own country out there. What are they leaving behind? Now, when they say that, let's say, for example, they are taking, let's say, maybe some 80, like, for example, US has a program annually of taking in. Now, if you watch carefully, you realize that there is a criterion that they are using to source only the resource, the work class, or the people who are able, physically fit, who can go and fit in their industries and do some work that maybe they cannot do. What are they doing? They're taking all the manpower, especially the youths of Africa.
Well, let me cut you short here. So you mean that these people, they are sourcing the resources from Africa and taking them away to their country?
That is it.
They never give them a return back to Africa. That's what you mean?
That's exactly what I mean. And in fact, even human resource. Now, we have not talked about the mineral resources. You've never heard of any African country that is doing any mining outside. In Europe, which country? Which country have you heard from Africa?
Absolutely,
any company?
Absolutely
none.
Yeah.
Not even one. But how many companies?
But look at this. Let me interject you there. Look at this before you answer that. You know, Africans, we don't have resources. Okay, we may have the resources, but we don't have the skills to do that.
The same skills. Skills have gone.
How many African countries
Yes.
do have the engineering companies that can construct the roads? For example, if you go to East African country, in particular Kenya, who is doing the construction of roads in East African in Kenya? The Chinese people. So what does that mean? Kenya, they don't have they have resources, but they don't have skills to do that.
No.
So they have to source from outside.
We are reducing ourselves. No. We cannot bow down to that particular point here. The skills that you're asking here, both skills, unskilled, and semi-skilled, all those particular skills, they have programs. Now, when they have already stated that these are the conditions of that particular place, it's going to make this particular place unviable. You cannot tolerate to live. Why do we have immigrants who are risking their lives to go through cold waters to find themselves on the other end? It's because they have already, it's a pretext. They have already preset the conditions here to make them unfavorable, so that anybody, including the doctors, engineers, who've got skills from universities, and they cannot find it fitting. So they'll have to think of greener pastures in the name of greener, and then they go out there.
So you mean Africans, we have the skills,
but because of the conditions have been preset by those particular people that I've just mentioned right now, it's neo-colonialism. Then they will just come back and say, hey, we are coming back with skills. Give us the job. So in other words, the money that you are making also going out there. In other words, they are getting the best. Every drop, every blood, every drop of your blood, every sweat is taken in a way, in a choreograph. It's a whole system. In fact, it's a system that needs a paradigm and overhaul kind of replacement from the top, from the leaders themselves. And that's why one of the greatest speakers here, P.L. Lumumba, says this. We are not free until every country in Africa is free. And not just saying free a lip service. No.
Hold on there.
Yes.
Let's go for a commercial break. PTN TV goes for a break. Then when we are back, we'll have more to share. Stay tuned. Remember, we're talking about the Pan-Africanism in Africa. Do you think Africa as a continent is a good place for you to live in? That's the question we're asking. Keep on sending your messages and your requests as we take a break now.
This is PTN TV. You are watching PTN TV, changing your life.
Yes. All right. Now, the question that we're going to ask is this: when he's going to join, or if he's being elected to be the chairperson of the African Union, is he going to keep playing politics in Kenya?
First of all, this particular gentleman has not yet, secured the particular position.
Yes.
I'm going to read a title here for you.
Okay.
And we're going to ponder on it. Raila, the former prime, battles for plum. AU post, despite being on the fringes of government most of his life.
Okay.
What does that exactly, first of all, mean?
I think to my side is like he has been in the position in the government since
until he doesn't see,
and he doesn't see himself being the president. But now again, the fact is the idea here is now that the government which is in position is campaigning for him, which has never happened. In fact, that is the history in Africa.
Could that be the reason as to why he's mute? He's of no participation in commenting the whereabouts of
I guess you can say that there's no enmity in politics, because the person who's going to campaign for such a seat is the president of that country, because he's the one actually who knows the president from other. Remember, this is whereby the presidents meet and vote. So if the president, that is the Dr. William Ruto, doesn't campaign for him
or doesn't give him support,
actually may not get the chance. So that's why you have seen him moving up and down with the president.
But I think he has got divided interest here, whether he should step out, or not. So whether he should be still be, he's holding. He's holding his particular party politics together. At the same time, he's supposed to try new waters, and something that leaves this particular gentleman in between a rock and a hard place. I would say that the gentleman, Raila, the former prime, is in a dilemma situation, and most likely he doesn't know. If he has to comment on any, he has to comment diligently, knowing that either way, he might either get it or not. And that's why his particular, his silence is also taken into consideration.
Actually, some people have been asking so many questions about him, saying that why can't he comment about, for example, the issue of taxation in Kenya now?
Yeah.
Why does he talk about some projects that are being done? Because the question is, he cannot actually say it in a negative way. Because for him, he's actually looking for a place to live. He's actually looking for a bridge.
That's
and
true.
The president here is the bridge. So actually cannot cut a bridge, or he cannot start dancing on a bridge.
Because you never know where
the other side
ends.
Now he's actually in the middle of the bridge.
I'm going to read something shortly for you here.
Okay, please.
First of all, there are two information. There's two lines I'm going to read here. We're going to put on them again. He says that none of the former leaders, none of the former leaders of the African top organ have come from the opposition. He is the only person, candidate, who was the first. It is time who has come from the opposition.
I think that is we can say that this man is an history maker because again, from East African community is the first person.
This is PTN TV. You are watching PTN TV, changing your life.
Who has been in opposition since his father was dead. Thank you so much. Welcome back again from the break. I'm Professor Ezekiel, and this is PTN TV. We are talking about the Pan-Africanism. This is a question that we have to ask. Why is why the Africans not united from the political leaders to the religion or the religious leaders? So we have more resources, but yet we are poor. We are known to be the richest continent in terms of resources, but we are known to be the poorest continent in the world. Now, you mentioned about the PLO Lumumba on that point, and now I want us to bring in, there have been seen some Africans who are actually come up. They are now talking about this. Some are politicians, some are religious leaders, some are not even in any position in any government, but they have seen this idea, like you're saying.
Good.
In South Africa, we have Malema. We have been looking him. We have been seeing him talking about this, the westernization. Even the other day he said, no, African, the Western people, enough is enough. You have to stop this. Now, why are we not seeing the presidents, the 54 presidents from Africa, talking about this?
Before I answer your question, let me reiterate what you said as you were introducing this. We are considered, not us, we are considered to be the richest continent in the world, but yet we are languishing and excruciating in poverty.
Yeah.
Something that really pains me very much. Now, back to your question. PLO Lumumba, amongst is just one of the very many leaders who have been enlightened, who are awake, who were awake. In fact, if you've been listening to this particular gentleman, he'll tell you that, hey, Africa is at a certain point, at a crossroads. Is either we take a step to the right or to the left.
The left.
We cannot take either way. We cannot take both. So we have to choose. Mentioning of the 54 countries, heads of state, 54, not all of these particular 54 member heads of state have got the best interests of their countries. Others, they've got personal interests that still safeguarding. So which means that they're easily manipulated by the West. And I already said in the previous session that manipulation is at rampant. These other leaders among the 54 heads of state from Africa, they have been used as puppets. Why say so? Some of the policies that they maybe use to govern their countries are policies that are borrowed, policies that are not favoring the local citizens or the local people, policies that are advocating or that they favor the external, interests, that they safeguard their interest. We are going to elect you. We are going to make sure that you are the president. Just allow us to be doing, all that particular company to be doing some mining from this particular place and this and this, okay? We are going to make you become the president, and we're going to be extending all this particular help to your country. We will come in and do this and this and this. South Africa, you mentioned about Malema. Malema has always been on the forefront, and Malema has, advocating. Remember, South Africa is a country that has found itself in crossroads many years down the line. The apartheid in South Africa. Yes. There was a clear distinction between who is who, the haves and the have-nots, right? The blacks and the whites. Now, that is not Malema's problem. That is not my problem. This is the apartheid problem. Now, if anybody is there to question why you are calling them blacks, why are you calling them whites? No. The apartheid's problem. They made sure that this one is happening, and it has been being carried down, generationally, has been passed down generationally up to the current state. So if somebody wakes up right now and says, hey, you white, stop talking, don't blame them. Because the whole idea, the whole brainwashing has been passed down generationally. Now it is high time that the youths of Africa need to wake up, including the students, the university students of Africa, and now Malema, being a student's leader, as he started his political career. Has gotten into a point whereby he's questioning all these particular indignities. Just a minute. All these particular indignities, mistreatment, and that has always been done on Africans up to the current moment of speaking.
Now, speaking about the students in the African universities, do you think an African child who has been given the Western education, do you think this person can come up and say that the Western people, they are doing wrong to the Africans because this is somebody who has received? And now, as we speak now, the education that is being fed in Africa is from the Western. Good. We don't have the African education because we used to have the traditional way of learning about our culture, the culture diversity. Yes. But now we don't have it. People are learning the Western education. You can even find a child in Africa learning the history about America.
I think you're not
learning
getting
the
it.
history of, just a minute, learning the history about France. But now, if they tell, do you think this person who has received the Western education can come up and say now, the Western people, enough is enough, Africa now, we are independent, we can do our own things, and yet we don't have things to go?
Have you ever heard of neo-colonialism?
I've heard about it.
Good. Let me break it down for you, or make it simpler for you. Train these particular slaves, let them come and work for us. Teach them our ways, how to drive on our roads, to drink a cup of coffee in the morning, to say good morning, hello, how are you, bonjour, so that they can come and work. What is that? Now, in disguise, thinking that they're doing good for you, or they're doing something good, or they're trying to, civilize you. You think that you are an alumni from Harvard University, and you come to Africa, you speak all those particular big, quotations, citing some omnibus, the Harvard law, for example, and then you think that you are highly educated. That's not true. You are educated on be able to cram, to memorize. Whose law, for example, that's just an example from Harvard. Whose law? African law? Baganda's law? The Zulu's law? No, in fact, you're poor there. You can only quote their law and maybe do better in there. So if they call upon you, you say, yes, an alumni from Harvard University, and I can do that. I can defend the plaintiff by quoting what they give you. But that's not an African. In fact, you look
now,
at
do you think that the education the Africans are receiving now, so we can say they are receiving a very good education, which was to do better in the western part of the world and not in Africa? That's what you want to mean.
That's the context. That's what I started by saying.
If we cut Africa from the western, how is it going to survive?
I
Do
know.
we have enough technology that is going to do this work? Do we have our own language? That's the first question I ask.
I'm sorry to say this one.
We don't have African language, and we don't have the African knowledge. We don't
Yes.
have the knowledge from the Western people, because that's what we have been fed. That's what we have learned about.
We've been sleeping for too much, and that is the reason as to why you can talk like that. If the Western cut itself from us, the Western relationship is cut short from Africa, how is Africa going to survive?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the pretext will have been placed exactly like that, because you are meant to think like that, there is no any other given time that the West, when they cut their relationship with Africa, that Africans will survive by themselves. They knew it from the very beginning. Imagine how was the Western before they contacted Africa. We were there. Now,
Africa was not there.
Hey. What
Africa,
was there?
it was just there, but it was not there to be there.
Now, and that's why
It has been there because of the Western people.
What makes you think that Africans cannot do what the whites and the Western are doing?
Look, even the way you're dressed. You're dressed in the Western way, not in the African way.
All right, very soon that you got me off guard. No, shut up. I think now, now, now listen.
Still, we are consuming things from the Western.
Which means that these are the pretext. The conditions have been set like that one to meet that particular, demand. Listen, how can you tell somebody that you're out of the box, and how can this particular person know that he's out of the box? Now, this brainwashing that has been done even into our faith. Do you know that you've been brainwashed? Even your faith, even into your matters of the spirit, spiritual matters. You've been brainwashed up to that particular point, because they realize that physically we cannot tame these particular people. Let's just pretend that we've gone.
Okay.
We've given you freedom. Freedom. Right? But in real sense, they knew that they are going now to prison you in another way.
In another way.
They are going to
In the
beat-
absence.
In the absence, you are a prisoner.
Now, on that point,
Maybe
on that point of the absence, now you remind me about the dollar. Do you believe in the dollar?
How can you just make that one clearer? What
Because
do you mean
the
by
dollar, this is the Western idea, whereby it's working for them in Africa.
Yes.
They're not there, but it's working in Africa. Like if you want to go from Kenya to Uganda,
Yeah.
you want to go from Kenya to Morocco,
Yeah.
Nigeria, Niger, you have to use a dollar, because you cannot use for the
In other words, you mean that
exchange.
there is no common currency in Africa, isn't it?
We don't have the common currency,
Yeah.
and yet why do we use the dollar in Africa?
Good. It has found its strength. You know, each and every time that you keep on thinking about something, one way or the other, it will materialize itself, whether you like it or not. Finally, is going to show up. A dollar has been given this particular as a medium of exchange,
Okay.
because it has been given the strength.
But look,
It
we
has
don't,
been given the
Western
recognition.
people, they're not now in Africa.
Yeah.
Why are not African? Because I think for the first state is let us use our own. But look here, we are in Africa, yet we are using the dollar, we are using the euro in Africa. Why can't we use our own currency
In fact,
then as a unity,
Yes.
solidarity? We don't have it.
Very good observation. In fact, I was headed there. Maybe you should have asked me what needs to be done to undo what was done. What needs to be done? One, the tariffs, the visa-free movement of people, resources, and resources. Once that one happens in the 54 member states that makes up Africa, is the first step towards salvaging, towards getting ourselves or undoing that which was done several years down the line. Now that will mean that there is going to be free movement of people from one place. So now you are not going to identify a Ugandan as a Ugandan. You can go do business there, own a property, have land there, have a house, have family there without any fear that you're going to be evicted or moved from one place to another. How many countries in Africa are willing to do that? Some have, some cannot, because they're still holding onto that ideology. Number two, maybe what needs to be done. This is true. It is doable if it can be initiated and embraced. Number two, having a common currency, something that Mohammed Gaddafi, the president of Libya, had started initializing, and maybe no wonder that's why he was assassinated, because
Are you sure
he was over. Yes, he was over an ideal. He was over a superb idea.
Do you have the evidence that he was assassinated?
Listen, Muammar Gaddafi had a reserve of gold in Africa. In fact, he used to give out. In fact, the currency he used to give out. Once he has harnessed, because he knew that particular place, he knew that for Africa to be free, he had that particular idea from the very beginning. And of course, supported by South Africa, by the then president, that was Nelson Mandela. There's one of the clip I'm going to share with you, where Nelson Mandela was questioned. It was like a routine. The Americans, they used to have this particular meeting every year, not after a given period of years. They sit down and they talk about Africa. Nelson Mandela was asked a question that would put him at crossroads with the relationship of South Africa and America. Do you support, that is back then, it was asked, do you support the assassination of Mohammed Gaddafi? And because that was a question that would have put the relationship of South Africa and America at a crossroads, at a very, the edgy point. This Nelson Mandela did respond like this: your enemy doesn't have to be necessarily my enemy. So keep your enemies, your enemies. Do not drag me into your war. And in fact, he ended up by saying this one here, that during the struggle and the rebellion of the South Africans, the Libyans, Mohammed Gaddafi, they came in support, in handy. In fact, they presented all the weapons in disposal for the South Africans to see themselves independent.
From what you've said about the Nelson Mandela.
Let me finish just a minute before you continue. So it is an idea that was there and it was cut short. It had not, go and do research. I'll tell you that Mohammed Gaddafi had initiated this particular program of salvaging or seeing Africa becoming free by first and foremost having a common currency that would have, seen Africans being liberated from the pangs, from the hands of the strongly holding hands of the Western imperial powers that are even disguising themselves as neo-colonialists through the leaders, people whose policies and values are not much stronger than other people's opinion about them.
Now, when you mentioned about Mandela, there's something you said that keep your enemy.
Yeah.
And I think this is, you can agree with me,
yes.
Africans will never be united. Because if you cannot fight my enemy, then there's no way you're going to unite. Because if I have found an enemy, why can't you join me and chase this enemy? Because if my enemy is your friend, then it means African, we have a long way to go.
In fact, we don't have a long way to go.
Africa,
wait. It is in our thinking.
Because, not the thinking.
It is in our thinking.
I'm just saying from what you have said.
Yes.
That keep your enemy. It's all right. My enemy is your friend.
What if your enemy is my friend?
Yeah, your enemy is my friend. You do business with him. I'm doing the business with your enemy. So I cannot fight my friend. When he comes to your country, he is your enemy. So which means we cannot fight and we cannot chase away this enemy.
Are you also looking at the reason why I say that is in our thinking? Try as much as possible to reduce enemies and have more friends, and you'll be successful. Simple as that.
Now,
look at it. Let me just quote one of the.
No, I can't allow you to continue. I can't allow you to do that. I can't allow you. I have to say
this one is. This is painful. This is burning.
No. I can't.
Just a minute.
I can't. Just listen. If you say that, so which means if the Western people, they have discovered that you're fighting the enemy, don't you think they're going to come with another way? They're going to paint themselves so that now they can be friends. Do you think you can chase them away?
But if you explain yourself, you make yourself very clear that I'm trying as much as possible to avoid creating enemies. In fact, let me just reiterate on what I was about to tell you shortly. The president of Kenya, current president, that is Dr. William Ruto, in one of the meeting that he had with the Harvard students who are coming into pioneer Kenya becoming the next or the future of Africa's high-tech hub. He said this, in a multipolarized global world, he is trying very much not to create many enemies. You know, that statement alone should make you understand. To a liberal thinker, a liberated mind, should be able to know that, hey, I don't need to have more enemies. I need to have more friends if I need to, you know, do successfully in this particular place. So, back to your question, you were talking about enemies. Who is the enemy here? An imaginary enemy or an enemy who is
The known.
No, you don't have. In fact, that's an imaginary enemy because you're trying to pull me into creating an enemy simply by asking, are you my friend or you're my enemy? That's literally what you're asking me. A very, you know, retarded question, like to a liberal thinker. Listen, okay, that really got my got me. Okay?
It's all right.
You know, that can't be a question in this particular context. What we need to be asking ourselves is this: how can we reduce this mess, this madness that is going around the globe? Which madness? And I know you understand the madness that I'm referring to.
Let me cut you this. Now, what is the African's problem? Is it the Western people or the enmity from the Western people? Now, when you say that the president said that